All right, hello math fans. All right, so today what we're going to be talking about is rounding. Rounding numbers. Okay. Basically, you will be rounding numbers when anything that starts out in a decimal, like if you have an equation that has a bunch of decimal places in it without, not fractions, they have decimals, then I will be very specific and I'll tell you to round to the nearest tenth, hundredth, thousandth. Okay, so you'll know that you're going to be rounding because this is in decimals. All right. The only time I maybe wouldn't tell you that you have to round is when we're talking about money. Okay, because when we're talking about money, you guys should know that you're supposed to round to two decimal places. I mean, that makes sense because it's cents. All right, so that's probably the only time I would not tell you to round is with money, and then you just do it. Okay, so let's talk about how to round. And I know a lot of you guys are like, well, you know, I've already learned rounding back in the day, but you know what? Some of you guys are a little rusty about it, and I'll tell you, it's really important to round and to be able to know how to round, because if you don't, especially on a quiz and test, I will take a point off. If I say round to the nearest tenth and you don't round to the nearest tenth, you round to the nearest hundredth, or you don't round at all, you round incorrectly, you're going to lose a point off of that. And that's a brutal way to lose a point. Okay, why not just learn how to do it and you'll be good to go. You'll use this in science and, of course, in your math classes. Very, very important. So let's kind of just start out with an example here. First of all, you guys know if I ask you to round to the nearest tenth, that's one decimal place. And hundredth is two decimal places, and thousandth is three decimal places, 10,000th is four, etc. Okay? That's kind of how it works, and you keep going. 100,000 is five, whatever. Okay, so that's important there. Now let's talk about actually rounding. If I have 2.63897, okay, if I ask you to round, let's just kind of look at this. Let's round to the nearest tenth. T-E-N-T-A. Tenth, there we go. Okay, if I ask you to round to the nearest tenth, what you always do, and that's going to be, I might even say one place, one decimal place, okay? You're going to look at the decimal place after that. That is really, really important. So you look at the placeholder after the rounding point. So if I say the nearest tenth, you look at the hundredth. Okay, so you look at the placeholder after, and that's so super important. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to look at the 3. Okay, and this is the rule. After you look at that, the rule is if it's below 5, which is, 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0, that decimal place, so that's 6, it stays the same. Stays the same number. Sometimes you hear that referred to as you round down. Sometimes people get confused though. They think round down, you're going to take one away from that, and you don't. You keep the number. Okay? If it's 5 or above, which is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, if it's 5 or above, then you increase that rounding number. Okay, the 6. You increase the rounding number by 1. All right, that's the rule. So you look at the number after the place and you decide if it's 5 or below, or if it's below 5, you round down. You keep the number the same. If it's 5 and above, you round up. Okay, so let's actually look at this number that I just wrote up here, 2.63897. If I said round to the nearest tenth, I look at the 3. The 3 is below 5, so to round to the nearest tenth is going to be 2.6. Okay. If I ask you to round to the nearest hundredth, okay, you're going to look at the 8, the one right after it. It's 5 and above, so that means you have 2.64, right? You move this, bump this up by 1. Okay, thousandth, you look at the 9 and you say, okay, you bump it up by 1, so it's going to, you bump the 8 up by 1, so it's going to be 2.639. Okay, and 10,000th. You look at the 7 is greater, it's 5 and greater, so you bump it up by 1. Now, the deal is, it's a 9. So it's like saying, well, instead of 89, what are you going to do? It's going to be 90, right? Because you go to 0, and then you bump up the 1 next to it. And it's not really rounding that 8, but it's moving it up. So you're going to have 2.6390. And a lot of times, if I ask you guys to round to the nearest, like, 4 decimal places or 10,000th, you actually put in, even though this is a 0, you still draw that in there. Okay, because then it just shows that you truly are rounding to that decimal place. All right, so let's try a couple more here. 5.525981. Okay, so we'll just do a bunch of examples here. So we're going to do 0. This is decimal places. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 decimal places. Okay, that'll be a good example here. Okay, so if I ask you round to 0 decimal places, what are you going to look at? You're going to look at the one after it, which is the first one. Okay, so that's the 5. It's 5 and above, so it's going to be, your rounding is going to be 6. Okay, 5.5 basically is rounds up to 6. Okay, the next one, you look at the 2, so it's less than 5, so it's going to be 5.5. 2 decimal places, you look at the 5, it's 5 and above, so it's 5.53. You look at the 3 decimal places, that's 5.5259. That's greater than 5 and greater, so you round to 5.526. Okay, 4 decimal places, you're looking at the 8. Okay, it's bigger than, it's 5 and bigger, so the 9 gets bumped up, but of course it rolls over, so it's 5.5260. Okay, which actually that's exactly the same as that. It just happens that's the way it worked out. Okay, but again, that 8 bumped that 9 up 1 notch. And then let's look at the 5 decimal places. You're going to look at the 1. Well, it's below 5, so it's 5.52598. Okay, so that is rounding with decimals. Let's actually do a couple problems here now where you're using decimals in a problem. And so I might say, most of the time I'm going to say round to 2 places or the nearest hundredth. So here it is, 5.63x minus 2.87 equals 8.63x minus 1.09. All right, pretty basic problem. It's just we have decimals in here, so we're going to move things over. Subtract 5.63 from both sides. Yeah, I'm going to make this an 8, just because I want it to come out to be a decimal. Okay, so subtract that, and then I'm going to add 1.09 to both sides. And, you know, again, you're definitely using your calculator now because all decimals here. And so you don't really even have to worry about making a mistake with adding and subtracting. You shouldn't make a mistake unless you type in your calculator wrong. Okay, so this is negative 1.78 and 8.68 minus 5.63. That's going to give me 3.05x. Okay, we divide both sides by 3.05. And we get x equals 0.5836, etc. Okay, I actually rounded 2 decimal places. Very simple. You look at this number, there's 3 here, and the answer is just 0.58 because it's below 5. Okay, pretty easy stuff. Let's try one more here. 2.78 minus 3.6x equals negative 1.83x plus 18.29. Okay, no big deal. I'm going to add 3.6x to both sides. And again, it doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as you're consistent here. So I'm going to move the 3.6 over, and I'm going to subtract 18.29 from both sides. Okay, so 2.78 minus 18.29. It gives us negative 15.51 and 1.83 negative 1.83 plus 3.6 gives you 1.77x. Divide both sides by 1.77, and we get x equals 8.7627. Okay, so I didn't tell you what to round to. Let's say I asked you to round to one decimal place. That's going to give you x equals 8 point, right? You look at the 6, you bump it up by 1, 8.8. Okay? If I ask you to round to two decimal places, you look at the 2, it's less than 5, so x equals 8.76. If I ask you to round to three decimal places, so this is 2, this is 3 decimal places, you look at the 7, it's above 5, 5 and above, so it's 8.763. All right? So that's it, math fans. I hope you are really good at rounding, because you're going to need to be to get all these problems correct. All right. Have a nice day, math fans. Goodbye.